Most people overlook mobile home parks. The ones who don't are quietly doubling their money every 3 to 5 years. This is Grid Charleston, a monthly investor meetup right here in Charleston, South Carolina, where we sit down with the people who are actually doing deals. This month, one of our grid leaders, Marcela Ruiz, sat down with Ryan Groene, a full time mobile home park investor since 2018, who has owned over 20 mobile home parks across the Midwest and Southeast. Ryan emptied his 401k to buy his first park at 25, learned the hard way, rebuilt, and now runs one of the most disciplined operations in the space. In this conversation, you'll learn what it actually takes to find, buy, and operate a mobile home park, the financing structures that work, the pitfalls that have taken operators down, how to find deals in today's markets, and what makes a park worth buying in the first place. Here's the conversation. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Grid Charleston.
I think everybody here has been here before, so they all understand kind of like what grid is. We are here to, of course, talk about or talk with real operators, and that's who Ryan is. To first thank our sponsors, Sweetgrass Capital, Mitchum Law Firm, Tide Property Management, and then we have a new sponsor, Apollon Wealth Management. They work with investors and entrepreneurs on long-term wealth strategy, not just chasing returns, but structuring capital properly. So just a little bit, we'll just get right into the community. So we spoke with Ryan and we're here to talk about mobile home parks and investing in them and making millions of dollars.
I don't know about that, but maybe.
So if you could tell us a little bit about give us a little bit of your background, give us, a little bit of how you became a mobile home investor.
Yeah, so I'm Ryan Groene. For those of you that don't know me, I primarily focus on mobile home parks throughout the Midwest and the Southeast. I've been in the business for about 10 years going on. I've been a full-time mobile home park investor since 2018. That's the last time I had a real job, per se, where I had a W-2. I've still done things, odds and ends throughout the years. My backstory is not unique in any means. My first park ever, I emptied my 401k and bought it with a few partners. And that was my first real estate purchase ever. I did not flip houses. I'm not recommending that. I just it's something that I was well educated. I was also working in the space at the time for a few gentlemen that I had known up in Ohio, where I'm from, and then that was my first park was 75 units in Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's how I got into the business. Backing up a little bit, my backstory on how I really got into the business was I worked in finance. I always wanted to kind of own real estate or own businesses. I looked at multifamily, looked at duplexes, laundromats, all that stuff. I looked at doing a mobile home flip, kind of like what everybody's doing now. Everybody's flipping mobile homes, but this was like in 2014, before like everybody didn't know what a mobile home park was. Just went down the rabbit hole of who owns parks and went to a couple boot camps, got educated, and then bought my first park, like I said, in 2017. And that was 20 plus parks ago. We do also own some RV parks, but for the point of this topic, I'm just going to stay kind of on in the mobile home park business.
What would you say was the hardest part early on?
The hardest part early on was there was a multitude of why it's hard. The hardest part is doing your first deal. And the reason it's the hardest is because you've maybe never done anything like that, right? So you're not necessarily experienced. I would say doing your first deal, your second deal is actually easier. And then once you kind of do two, three, anybody that's done, it's like going to the gym, right? The first time you go to the gym is the hardest, but as you continue to go and be consistent, it becomes a lot easier. The hardest part was actually operating the park because I had no real experience operating any asset because I went from 0 to 75 units relatively quickly. And I had no real experience per se from an ownership perspective. So that was very hard too. And being 25, 26 at the time, getting kind of over that age gap with people that were double my age and being in charge of them all of a sudden is also another kind of learning curve that sometimes people don't realize can go along with, managing your own stuff. So
Absolutely. What would you say, what's the real strategy behind mobile home parks?
finding them or operating them.
Both.
So the real strategy in mobile home parks is nothing unique. It's like finding any asset, right? You build your database, you find the owners, and you get in front of them, whether that's meeting them at their house, calling them, emailing them, texting them. However, you source deals in any other asset class or business, it's the same in the park world. Talking to brokers, talking to agents. I mean, I tell everybody that I meet, even before I owned a park, that I was a mobile home park investor, and that's how you do it. I mean, there's no secret to it. It's just being consistent. And the secret sauce to operating mobile home parks profitably and consistently is is honestly really boring. It's we have a set of KPIs that we do every week. With all of we manage everything in house. Every manager, we have the same meeting every week. You know, kind of where are we at delinquencies, where are we at move in, move outs, what's vacant, what problems are going on in the park. Every week, it's the exact same meeting. And the reason we do that is therefore by the end of the year or the end of the month, our collections are really close to zero. We really have very few evictions across our portfolio. And that is because we stay on top of people. We do give people payment plans and options, but we really try to avoid evictions. And operating parks or operating real estate is, you know, no pay, no stay, right? Collect rent, no play, no stay, meaning if people don't follow rules, get rid of them. And then the third one is just kind of keep expenses low and don't, you know, overspend if you don't have to. Still take care of the place and take care of the community, but you know, we're a lean team as far as like our back office goes. 50 employees in my back office. We have like 5. We have a lot of on-site staff, but we try to keep everything lean and we watch every dollar that comes in and goes out too.
So just like, you know, we're here for how to make $1 million investing in mobile homes. If someone wanted to make $1 million, what actually has to go right?
So you're not going to make $1 million per year. You're going to make, it's like real estate. You make your money when you buy, but you also really make your money when you exit or you have some type of liquidity event. Liquidity event being a refinance or a sale. But even if you sell, you may 1031 it, so you may not really make $1 million, right? Real estate, unfortunately, the only way to really make that money is to sell it, right? And or you refinance it into a new loan, but that's how you do it, right? So really kind of backing that out on how you really do it is you find something for you know, undervalue. Let's say you're paying 30,000 a unit and you make it worth 50,000 a unit over the course of 3 to 5 years or longer by infilling units, cleaning up the park, raising rent, billing back utilities, and then making it a nice clean asset that's sellable to somebody else, and you've now doubled the value of the park over the course of 3 to 5 years, and then that's how you make, you know, $1 million. For example, my first park we bought for 700,000. We redid the roads, we brought in 20 plus homes, we raised the rents, we connected well water to city water, and then we sold it for a few $1 million later. So
In what time frame?
like 3 years.
3 years.
So it was also rising market, but we also increased the NOI, which is in commercial real estate. That's really how you drive the valuation is net operating income. The higher your NOI based on the cap rate that is kind of applied to the industry is how you get your valuation. So the higher NOI that you can force after purchase is how you drive value a lot of times.
So you said it's not easy as it was 10 years ago, right? But if someone wants to get in it today, like where would they begin? How should they start? What area? What?
I would say start within probably 2 to 3 hours of where you live, because that's a day trip, right? You can get there and back. Find something that's semi-stable, not like a huge infill, meaning that there's that it's not 0 mobile homes on site, because mobile home parks are parking lot with utilities, and you know, you want something that's producing revenue, producing some cash flow, and there's no reason that you can't start smaller. You don't have to go buy a 100-unit park or a 100-unit anything. You can buy a 10 to 20 unit asset. The closer it is, the smaller it should be. The further away it is, the larger it could be. And that's just due to the people that you can put in place and kind of the economics of the deal. But I would just start, if you're really looking to get into the space, get educated first. Talk to people like me, go to boot camps, you know, listen to podcasts, read books. I mean, there's all kinds of free information out there. I'm sure I have like 20 different things that you can probably find me. And I'm happy to talk to people. I come to the events. I mean, I know everybody kind of in this room. I'm happy to talk mobile home parks with you. Just get educated and then go out and find deals. And you can partner with guys like me or people like me. We're happy to partner with people that bring us deals and kind of show people the ropes.
Looking for?
So
Okay, so we want to network and look for, you know, either join forces, right? Or look for land. I like what you said. It's just land with utilities,
Mhm.
right? Just that's what trailer parks are. And then you just add the infrastructure or right of mobile home parks, the mobile homes itself. That's what it is.
Yes. So a mobile home park, we're buying existing mobile home parks. So it is a parking lot with utilities, meaning people have their mobile homes, they park them there on a monthly basis they pay lot rent. And then the utilities are typically already there, water, sewer, whether that be private or from the city or town that's provided. And we may pay the bill and bill it back, or the tenants may pay it directly. But typically, yes, it's a those homes are not leaving like a parking lot. They're not. It's very expensive to move a mobile home. They don't typically move from month to month or year over year. Once that home's in there, it's 90% of the time it's staying for 10 plus years.
How many total parks do you own?
I've owned over 20. Currently, I um 10, 11 left on the mobile home park side. We just bought 3 in the last month. We took 2 years off. We just really couldn't find any deals that worked for us. So we did not buy anything in 2025 and maybe even part of 23. Now I'm thinking about it. But we're back kind of in the mobile home park, kind of looking for deals because the opportunities are kind of coming back around because interest rates are up. People are getting out of the business. There's a lot of things that go into real estate, the ebbs and flows. So yeah, we're looking for deals. So pretty much 50 units or more in the Midwest or the Southeast is primarily where we buy.
Midwest or Southeast?
Mhm.
Nice, nice. So if we could, I know we're moving a little bit faster, to be honest. We're moving just because everybody here is a little bit more experienced. Everybody here. So if we could just break out real quick and see if you guys have any questions for him, for Ryan. That way we could kind of like continue with the conversation. Just take like probably like 10 minutes and then we can bring it back with Ryan. Bringing it back in. So just here discussing with Ryan, you want to go ahead and kind of like share what we were talking about development?
Yeah, so I'm sure somebody may have a question about development. I do not develop mobile home parks. The reason I don't develop or why it's not, because people always ask me, why don't you develop them? I know I've had conversations in here with people on development. The reason that mobile home park developments are not super popular is a few factors. One is kind of the NIMBY, which is not in my backyard. Nobody wants a mobile home park next to them. The second one is the actual economics that come from the city or the town that you're in. It's not a great driver of revenue from a tax perspective because in cities make their money from property taxes, income taxes, sales tax, everything. That's how they make their money, right? So mobile home parks typically are just one parcel of land, which is the real property, which is the largest tax base. And then the mobile homes themselves are personal property, which does not drive a lot of revenue. And then the people within these communities typically are not high income earners in most areas. So you're not going to have a lot of income tax that's going to drive the city revenue as well. So that's a lot of times why it's not beneficial from a city perspective to allow it. And then the third one is just the cost to develop a mobile home park. You're probably going to be at like with the unit all in somewhere between, because you're going to have to bring the mobile home in yourself. You're probably going to be between like 75 and 150,000 per unit. That's all in development before you even sell or rent a unit. So it's expensive to develop as well. And where people are developing is there's not a huge amount of demand. There are some developments like in Texas, out west, or more rural locations, but it's really, it's hard to be in the city center and develop a mobile home park. I do know of one that they redeveloped in Mount Pleasant, but it was an existing park. He just basically retransferred the layout and he brought them in as rentals and he's renting them out for like 15 to 1700. But it was an existing park. That is a key. It was not bare land to where he got the zoning. It was an existing park that he reformatted and replatted. So that can be done, but you're still buying a park at that point.
I know you had a question and then we'll start. Yeah.
So my first 10 deals, I didn't syndicate. It was just all joint ventures. So like me, my business partner, and like, another investor, say yourself, we may have had the deal and we had some capital and you had some capital. And then we invested together and then just operated them and sold them or refinanced them. Right. That was probably my first 10 deals. I sold my first 7 parks. I've sold them, since I bought in 2017, 2018. And then after that, we started syndicating. It also depends on the deal size. So anything $1.5 million, $2 million, on the purchase side, that's kind of where you would start to syndicate. It's all 506B syndications. So friends and family raise. That's where we typically would start, but we've done like 7 or 8 syndications, and that includes some of our RV parks too.
Yeah.
So
how about traditional debt versus self-care vaccinated?
I've done I take that back. I've done, except subject to, which is like the hot, what's his name is all over the internet right now. I'm not getting into that, but I've not done a subject to deal. I've done seller financing. I've done seller financing with bank debt, a combination where you stack the first mortgage and then the seller carries back like 10, 15%. The bank may allow that to be a part of your overall down payment. So you're getting into the deal for even less, right? It's part of the capital stack. I've also done full seller financing where, we're still putting down 10 to 30%. And then the seller is carrying the note for, 3, 5, 10 years. I've also done 2 master lease with option to purchase. I've actually executed one. We did the lease for like 3 years and then we turned around and sold it, which is the option piece. And we sold it to another buyer. So we've done a little bit of everything. And then in the traditional debt sense, commercial lenders will finance mobile home parks. You're typically going to put down, it's like any other commercial asset. You're putting 20 to 30% down. It's going to be whatever the commercial rate is. Typically it's 5 or 10 year plus 350 basis points, which is 3%. And you're going to have a 5 to 10 year term. We're typically getting 30-year amortization, and it's going to be personal recourse under $3 million typically, meaning you're personally guaranteeing the loan. Which is one of the downsides of doing smaller deals. If you can get into the next step of debt, which is conduit, CMBS, and life insurance companies or agency, which is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the lending is non-recourse. They care more about the asset, but they are more stringent, and it is costly to do those deals versus a commercial lender down the road, right? That has one bank. Or seller financing is my favorite, but don't let the seller financing trap trick you. A lot of people think, oh, I got seller financing, it's going to be a great deal. That interest rate could be like 10%, and the even though it might be non-recourse, it might be better to go to the lender, the commercial lender, because their rate could be 4 or 5% or 6%, right? Versus 10 or whatever the economics of the deal for the seller. Don't get trapped by that. But to do your first deal, that's typically if you don't have a ton of capital, or if you don't have a balance sheet, which you do have to have a balance sheet to start doing deals, or a balance sheet partner, which would be in commercial real estate, would just be like a loan sponsor. Or key partner is what it would be called. Those exist. We've done those deals too. And that varies, right? So it could be 10, 20% of the deal. It could be a finder's fee. It could vary depending on what it would be. It just depends. I mean, that's all over the board. I'm not specifically saying what we've done. I just know that could be, if you're doing smaller deals or if you're doing deals with commercial lenders, you would have to have a sponsor per se if you don't have the balance sheet, which is the net worth and assets. And as you do more deals and get more debt, the easier it is to do another deal. It sounds really like if you come from the single family world, or if you do like single family rentals, typically will cap out on your lender, right? Now we may cap out in certain commercial lenders, but typically the more deals I do, the more bankable I am. It's a weird thing. I'm sure you've heard lots of commercial guys say that, but the more assets you own, the easier it is to get commercial loan typically.
Any questions for anybody else in this table?
Yeah.
So park-owned homes versus just lots that they're renting. I mean, is there sort of a criteria that you follow to exclude them very quickly?
Yes and no. So I don't buy so our typical buy is 50 to 80% full, right? Homes on site, right? That could be park-owned homes, could be tenant-owned homes, could be vacant homes. We're typically looking for 50 to 80%. I'll buy 100% occupied park. I don't really care how many park-owned home versus lot renters there are, because the deal specifics are going to determine whether that's worth it or not, right? So what I mean is, like, if I'm paying for that park-owned home, does the deal still work if I sell them off, do some type of lease option, or burn them off to where I'm transferring ownership from me to the homeowner, right? Because I want a full homeowner community. I want pride of ownership, and I want lot renters. That is what the banks want. That is what investors want, typically. Now, you can make a lot more money doing rentals if you're local, or if like the lot rent versus what they're renting the mobile home is like 3 to 4 times. So like if the lot rent in the market's like 200 and you can rent the home for 1,000, you're going to make a lot more money. You're just going to have a lot more headaches doing the park-owned home. It's all just on the economics of the deal. But yeah, typically the lenders want less than 30% park-owned homes when they're lending on a stable or value-add asset. So we're typically looking for that as well. We're trying to get them off our books as quick as possible, which means I don't really like paying for the park-owned home, if that makes sense. So, but That is a part of the business, and there's a gray area in the business when it comes to park-owned homes. This is a very kind of unique thing to mobile home parks. Is how many people in here have actually bought a mobile home or seen a title for a mobile home? Did anybody even know that there are titles? I'm sure a lot of people do, but it's like a car title, right? Unless you detitle them. So in the business, I just bought a park from an 85-year-old owner. Do you think he has every title? Hell, a lot of what we do is we send out he didn't know what he had. So we send out like information sheets to all the residents, have them fill it out. Do you have title? What's your agreement? Blah, blah, blah. Half of them don't have titles. And then when I get transferred, he's got like 5 titles. So what do? There's somebody in the home. So like, what do I do? Right. Or it's a vacant home that's ready to be rented. I rent it. Do I sell it? It depends on the state. I'm not advising you sell the home that you don't technically own. But if you own the park and it's sitting on your land, possession is 9/10 of the law, kind of almost. To some degree. So what we always try to do is we try to get the title through abandonment or whatever the state process is. We'll typically rent the home in the time being if it's vacant and we fix it up. We'll try to sell it on terms. And we have all the paperwork. We let the tenant know like, hey, we do not have the title. We are working on getting the title, but it just depends on how quickly we can get the title. If it takes a month to 2 months, we'll wait before we sell it. But during COVID, it was taking well over a year to 2 years. And some of these homes are so old that you have to get a new title, which means it's a whole nother process. And it's very costly and it's a lot of posting and this and this. And then if somebody makes a claim to it, but what do you do if there's no title and there's somebody in there? It's like, oh my God, kick them out because I don't have a title? No, they're going to keep paying me rent. It's just going to be a rental. So it's a great part of the business that sucks. I wish they made it a little bit easier, but like even if you go to the DMV or the county or wherever you go, they look at you like you got a third head because they're like, oh, this isn't even in the system. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So now what? So yeah, it's a gray area that is not great, unfortunately. Yes. So pitfalls. Yeah. There's a lot that can go wrong in real estate as a whole. I would say the number one pitfall of mobile home parks is, like any other asset class, is overpaying and not being able to execute on a business plan and figure out on how you get to your value. So we always try to go in relatively conservative on our interest price, and we try to execute the business plan within 3 to 5 years. The main pitfalls is buying private utilities and not doing your proper due diligence on the private utilities, or even on city utilities, right? Not making sure what the water lines are made out of, making sure what the sewer lines are made out of, because a lot of these parks are 40, 50 years old. So you may need to do some infrastructure improvement. Not walking through park-owned homes and just kind of taking the word that they're occupied or they're in good shape, doing your due diligence, proper due diligence. And then the third one, which I think is getting a lot of people in trouble, is taking on some type of bridge loan. It's just something we don't do. We typically, our shortest term debt is 5 years. And that's really, to me, that's not even that long. That is the shortest. But we don't do like 24-month loans. I don't raise all private money at 12% and I got to pay it back within a year. I just don't do those risky things. I'm looking for high reward, low risk deals. And that is, you do that by buying city utilities or, and buying 60 to 80% occupied park, making sure there's decent tenants in there where you don't have a huge delinquency. Or if you're buying a turnaround asset, having the ability to actually do it. And where we got into trouble is, not necessarily from like hey, I lost this deal. We outgrew ourselves. In 2022, we bought like 10 to 14 deals, and that was a few different assets too. And we got out ahead of our skis. So that's why I haven't bought anything in 2 years as well, because we were building kind of our back office and building our on-site staff, building the back office to kind of centralize it so we can go out and scale again. A lot of guys, the last 2 years, I know of like 4 or 5 operators in the mobile home park space that are kind of belly up because they got ahead of themselves and they bought too many bad parks, like turnaround parks that they couldn't execute. Another big one is buying a really vacant park and thinking you're going to be able to infill it and do that quickly, because that is a very, very, you have to be very well capitalized and have a very well oiled machine. And that's why I don't do like 100% vacant parks, because it is very hard to bring in 50, 100 homes in 1 year and then sell them all. It is a very tough operation. That is how you would lose it. I know it's like, so number one would be like buy an occupied park, buy city utilities, do your due diligence, get a phase one, get a survey if the bank requires it. Also, if you're going with a commercial lender, they're going to tell you whether if they're going to finance the deal and it's got enough debt service coverage ratio, it's above 1.25, 1.35, there's enough room for error. It is really hard to mess up a stable mobile home park. You have to be really taking your eye off the ball. It can happen. Those are like vacancy where they tried to infill. There's a lot of rentals to where the tenant base was really rough and they had a bunch of delinquencies and they couldn't turn it. Or they thought they were going to like double lot rent on people and then they have a rent strike. Like that can happen. And I don't do that. That's like the ethical part of the business that like like we only raise rent within reason. I'm not just trying to take advantage of people because it is affordable housing at its most basic need. We don't do Section 8. It's not subsidized. Like, these people are a lot of times they're in the later end of life, so they're retired. They're starting out. They've maybe had something happen to themselves, where they've had a couple mishaps, or they're just looking for somewhere affordable to live for their family because it is really expensive to live in the United States right now. And parks kind of serve that, starter home or grandma retired or whatever have you, right? But it is hard to mess up a park. If you overextend yourself with debt, that's short term. You're buying a park that needs a lot of infrastructure and you don't have experience, or you're going in undercapitalized. That I would say is kind of the top three reasons on why people go belly up or how they lose money. And that's like any other asset class, right? If you're doing a flip and you don't know, like, I don't know anything about like flipping single family, so I just don't do it. But if I was going to do it, I would go with somebody that's doing high volume. So like, I know like at least my risk to fail is pretty low, right? I'm the Sam Zell. If you don't know who Sam Zell is, you should read his book. It's called Am I Being Too Subtle? He was the largest apartment owner, industrial, mobile home park, and I think even campground right before he sold a bunch of it. Still has never sold a mobile home park. He's now passed on, but his whole thing is like high reward, low risk. That is what we look for in the mobile home park business. And just like, kind of that's what we look for. I'm not looking to do like high risk deals because it's just too many things that can go wrong. Did that answer your question, Klaus?
And I think you made a really good point, and I see that how many people fail in real estate in general. But, if they are undercapitalized, they don't have insurance, and if something goes sideways or it takes longer to develop, the expenses turn out to be different, then they have no financial resources to buffer.
And I'm not perfect. I mean, not all of our projects have gone right, but but typically what will save us is I don't necessarily we don't have short-term debt, right? So I have no debt really coming due. The rate might reset, but like my balloon is not due if like the property is not producing, right? So that's I think is a key thing too, is buying with as long-term debt as you can. If you're buying with debt, unless you're paying cash, which obviously delevers the risk overall. Go ahead. You had a question?
Yes, you mentioned earlier RV parks.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll keep it short just because the topic is mobile home parks. And in mobile home parks, you may be buying a hybrid park. You're going to have some RVs within the mobile home park business potentially, right? Some states do allow you to have a mobile home let you have an RV in a mobile home site. It just depends on the zoning. RV parks, how I got into them was just by like the mobile home park industry got really consolidated. So we were kind of chasing deals and chasing yield. And the RV park business was something that was kind of parallel, right? We had some experience with RVs within our mobile home parks. So we bought a handful of those because we were buying at like 9, 10 caps and getting like 4 and 5% debt. So the spread was really worth it at the time. We were buying in like 21 and 22. I've actually since sold, we had 8, we've sold, we have 4 left, and 2 are for sale right now. So we're getting out of that business just because it is an operationally intensive business. It's still a good business if you can buy it right. But just keep in mind that it is not real estate. It is a business disguised as real estate. It's like if you go buy a hotel, right? There's a reason, you don't have like, the hotels are very intensive to operate. And the margins aren't that great. Mobile home parks, the reasons I like those more long-term, for every dollar that we bring in revenue, we're spending 30 to 45%, right? So we're spending 30 to 45 percent of every dollar that comes in versus our RV parks, we're spending 45 to 55%, right? So the expense ratio is higher. You can make more money per unit for sure, because your rent's going to be a little bit higher. The shorter the stay in the RV park world, the more people you have. For every 100 sites we have in the mobile home park space, We have about 2 people because we don't have any rentals typically. And that's like part-time manager, maintenance, fix water lines, do this, do that. RV park, for every 100 sites, we have about 5 employees. So you wrench up the business nature of like it's a very management intensive business. It's hard to scale it. There's a reason nobody really has a ton of scale. And it's a very fragmented business. So you can go buy 1 or 2. And if you buy it with a few partners, you'll probably stay busy and make some good money. But I just don't see the longevity of it for us. But it's a good business if you can find the right deal. So
Any other questions?
The deals. You said Midwest. You have like groups of people in the Midwest, boots on the ground going.
So sourcing deals is the same. Like you could put me in single families, you could put me in businesses. I could source anything. And it's because it's all the same process, right? It's you get in front of what you're trying to buy, right? So that is building a database, which means you're scraping county records. This is like the true off market, right? You're scraping county records, you're taking databases that other investors have, and then you're building your own database. And with all the technology out there now, there are stuff you can pay for and you'll find the owners pretty much right away. I don't even know what's out there anymore. We do VAs that scrape our list, and we update it typically once every other year, sometimes once a year, just depending on where we are deal cycle wise. And then we just cold call owners. We also call owners. I don't handle that part of the acquisitions. My business partner does. He's kind of the more of the sales guy. But you can also call an owner and be like, once you own a park, it kind of changes the conversation. Because if you're especially in that town, we'll be like, hey, do you have a contractor where you have a water line break or something? Like, we'll just try to make an excuse to talk to them. You can mail them, you can show up at their house. And then other ways is just brokers, right? So like O'Neill and Paul and Marcela, right? Like you're talking to industry brokers, talking to other people, and then wholesalers too. Like I talk to a lot of people. And we buy a lot of wholesales too. So wholesaling mobile home parks does exist. We just bought one. We bought 2 actually, and we've also wholesaled them. So that exists too, but don't overcomplicate it. It's just like sourcing anything. It's just getting in front of what you're trying to buy. Yeah. So the younger you are, the more risk you can take is how I kind of think about it. I would never do that now. Like I'm 35 now. I don't have kids yet, but that's kind of the next step in my life. I don't know if you have kids, but everybody's in their own deal, like own different cycle of life, right? So when I was 20, I remember sitting in a cubicle. I'm not saying I won't ever have a job again. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds, but I remember I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I remember sitting there listening to podcasts, doing my job. And I'd be like, I'm done for the day. Why do I have to stay here? Right. So to me, it wasn't really a risk, because I had been educated enough. I'd spent enough money and time that I understood the business. Also, I worked for 2 guys in the business. So I just became friends with them. We looked at buying deals together. They had bought a few parks and they were like, hey, we need some help running parks. I joined their team when I was like 26. I was making like $2,000 a month. They were paying me part-time. But it paid my bills. So I had that covered, right? I had no kids. I was my now wife, we lived together, but my overhead was low, right? And I also learned that business operating because I went to work for somebody. It happened organically, but you could still do that, right? Maybe your overhead's a little bit higher because you're older and you have kids, but if you have more income, you can throw it at something versus somebody who had like no income. Like I don't know what I was making back then, but I went from full-time corporate job in finance to making $2,000 a month and emptying my 401k and trying to buy parks. But I was in it full time. And I was 25 to 28. I was walking dogs too. I was like doing a lot of part-time work to make ends meet. But I was like all in. I mean, it wasn't like I was like, I wasn't doing anything else. And everybody who knows me, I think I had a little bit of a spurt back in like 2020 to 2022. I was looking at buying businesses, but I've always been the mobile home park guy. And that's probably part of the reason too, is I've always been all in on it. I'm not like chasing different things. We all go through that spurt, but that's what I would say. If you're looking to get into it, you got to determine what is right for you, whether you're trying to replace your job, whether you're just looking for passive income, building, your net worth over the course of 5 to 10 years. My main reason was I was trying to get out of my corporate job. That was my main reason. And I was trying to build my net worth versus cash flow. That's what I was trying to do. So.
Good question. That's good.
Mentioned going east on the park behind it. How do you go about that?
Is your question related to the debt of the park or transitioning the park owned home to the tenant? Like, how do we do that? Okay. So there's a number of ways you can do it. One, we determine it depends on if I paid or if I put value when I purchased the park, right? Like if I paid for that home, right? It's actually like I paid, call it 40 grand, right? Like let's say I paid 40 grand for this home upon purchase. My transition period to transition it from a rental to a tenant owned home is going to be a little bit longer because I want to make my money back because I paid for that home, whether I paid in cash, because it could be a brand new home, right? It could be worth some money. I will try to see if they can go out and get their own financing. There are mobile home lenders that lend on mobile homes. So I'm not saying it's great lending, but there are Triad, PEP, Vanderbilt, and then there's the 21st program, which is through Clayton. They lend on through directly to the consumer. So we would try to do that. Or if we own the home free and clear, we may do lease option, rent to own, or a home installment, which is we would take a down payment and then we would just basically, let's say it's 10 grand, they're paying 500 a month, whatever, 10 grand divided by 500, that's the time period. I don't do loans. I don't do interest rates or anything like that, just because I don't want it to look like a mortgage. And obviously, this is all state dependent. Check with your lawyer because there's a lot of laws around like the Safe Act compliant, not Safe Act, but the Dodd-Frank stuff with loans. Each state is a little bit different on how they handle those, and it depends on the price point too. Also, another reason or another way would be if we go into a park and that home is like a 1970s home. 1976 or older. 1976 is when the HUD code was established for mobile homes. That is when you got a HUD seal and it kind of changed the dynamics of the insurance if you try to get insured. Let's say the home's worth $5 grand. And they're a good tenant. They've been in there we've owned the park 6 months. They've always paid on time, no problem. I may just sign over the title to them because I don't want it because it costs me more typically to maintain it, right? And it's a risk to me for insurance. They might blow out and then I got to turn it over. I want a homeowner because a homeowner typically will stay longer than a renter. So it just depends on the price. And that's how we determine kind of our path to get it there. Now, if they say, I don't want to be a homeowner, what we do is, we will try to force their hand a little bit by raising rent and saying, hey, you can save money by this will be your lot rent. This is your home. And then sometimes they just blow out. And sometimes you're just going to have renters and it's just the nature of the beast. And you kind of just got to wait them out. So.
Even if you want to have 20 or 30 full occupancy, you lose for the people are you buying your first thing, buying a home.
Yeah, so 99% of the time in the mobile home park business, once you buy a park, you are gonna, as the park owner, you're gonna have to buy the home, bring it in, set it, rent it, or sell it, right? So we're typically going to dealers like Clayton, Legacy. There's all kinds of brands out there, depending on where you are. And then they have, we're either paying cash for the home or they have financing options actually for the park owner, where we're putting down 10, 20% for the home. It's brand new right off the line. They bring it in and then we mark it up a little bit and sell it. So that's typically what happens. Or recently it's gotten really expensive throughout the US. We used to buy a lot of used homes, right? So we'd buy used homes on land or in another park that the park owner may not want. A lot of times also we filled a park one time because the park was closing down. It was getting redeveloped. So everybody had to move. We paid for everybody's move. We brought in it was like 7 homes. It wasn't anything crazy huge, but it was like 7 homes and we filled our little tiny park. It's 28 sites and we now have 25 occupied. We had 15 occupied. So we filled 10 sites from a park down the road closing down. So just paying attention to the local market. That can happen too, right? You offer to pay for somebody's move and they'll move their home into your park. I have this park outside of Morgantown, West Virginia. I've had that happen like 4 times there. It's a weird little market, but we put an ad on Facebook Marketplace, like, we'll move your home for $5,000 or whatever. And we just move their home and, cause it can be $5,000 to $10,000, $15,000 to move a mobile home. And we pay for their move. So that does happen, but 9 times out of 10, you're buying the home, setting it, paying for the setup, and then you're selling the home. To move and set a mobile home, depending on the state, if it's a HUD state, meaning, you have to typically, South Carolina is not a HUD state. Like Michigan, Missouri, those are HUD states. And a lot of new inventory, if you have a new home, you have to like pour concrete piers or you have to have a full concrete pad. That is where it becomes really expensive to set a mobile home. It can be $10,000 to $20,000 to move and set a mobile home and make it ready. That doesn't even include the price of the homes. And there's not a lot of skilled operators that are out there doing it. So you're kind of at their beck and call, whatever they want to charge within reason. So that answer your question?
Anybody else?
So how are you assessing?
we're underwriting these things. We're using the NOI and for the taking the asset value and applying that on top of these. That's what we learned from Tim, to Woodbridge and with TS. I'm in the group they're involved with. We haven't gotten in their contract, but we are seeing that. So, for an open home, how are you guys assessing the value when you're underwriting these deals?
Yeah. So what you're saying is when you're evaluating a park, right, you're looking at what the revenue is currently producing, what is the expense ratio within the park, but really you're going to apply your own expense ratio within your own business plan, right, to get kind of your own NOI generally, right? And then what you're saying is you're applying a shell value to the park on homes, right? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So the shell value would be like, what is it worth if you were to sell it? So let's say you have 10. It just depends. It's very, very market specific because a 1980s home in Charleston is worth probably a lot more than like a 1980s home in Morgantown, West Virginia, or like middle of nowhere, like Florence, right? It's all very market specific. And it all depends on the age of the home, right? 2010 or newer, it's probably actually going to be worth relative to what you paid. 90s or older, I really try to give no value as least as I can because there's two ways to buy a park with a lot of park on homes. You either pay cash and you actually there's three ways. You pay cash for the homes, whatever the shell value is, or they actually transfer title to you at closing. If they have no title, why would I pay for it, right? It's kind of like a weird thing. Or you can actually get the seller to carry the note on the homes. If he thinks they're so worth it, and he wants this price, let him carry the note on the homes. There's no reason that they can't. Or you can actually get a lender to finance the mobile homes nowadays. They'll finance the land and then they'll finance the home package as well. That's a little bit more complicated. I'm not recommending you do that because it can be a slower burn off. Like if you're trying to transition the park owned home to the tenant owned home, that takes a little bit longer because they're holding the title and they lent on it. It's just like a weird transition. So yeah, I mean, there's no secret to evaluating, mobile home parks. It's what's the land worth and what's the shell value of the homes. But I really try to give I'm just not a big payer for park on homes. I just never have been. And it's really hard to do deals sometimes because they may have 50% occupied, 50% park on homes, and they want, what the retail is. It's like, who's doing that? Not very many people. You mean, so his question is, where do the economics of the deal support on-site management? Is that kind of the honestly, you could have two mobile homes as a park and you could have an on-site manager. I mean, technically, I'm not saying the deal would work, but you could. I mean, you may give them $50 off lot rent. I mean, it just depends on how creative you want to get, right? Typically, on-site management is going to be where lot rent is like $300 to $400, and you're going to be in that 25 to 30 range. I had a 20 site park where we had an on-site manager, but we paid, it also depends on what you paid, right? So we paid like $180,000 for 22 units. So I could have on-site staff. It was like they get free lot rent. They're not getting anything crazy, right? But free living is free living. That is typically people's biggest expense. So I would say really 15, 20 units, you can do it depending on what you paid for the deal. I mean, the more expensive you paid, the less margin for error. Kind of back to Klaus's point, that's how you kind of can lose your shirt quickly if you overpay.
Yeah, I was just curious from your perspective. I mean, what we've management experience operating that I don't have in our other partner. We go 100, is the feedback that, is the minimum threshold.
It depends. Yeah.
And it's obviously going
to. Yeah. I mean, we don't go typically after anything less than 50 units nowadays, just because it's not worth it's actually easier to do a $20 million deal than it is a $1 million deal. It's easier because, like you said, the economics support more on-site staff. You get better debt. You get more professionals in the space that understand the business. Appraisals don't come back all wonky. You got a guy that does mobile home parks specifically. They don't do some commercial and then they just happen to do a mobile home park appraisal and now your appraisal's 50% under what you're paying. So yeah, I mean, I would say 50 units or more is probably where that number is. But I have also, you can cluster parks, right? So we have in one market, we may have 75 units and we have one manager that oversees 2 parks. So that is another threshold. And she does not live on site. She actually at one point oversaw 3 parks for us within about a 30 to 40 mile radius. So that can be done too. So you don't have to have on-site staff at your park anymore. We actually prefer that they don't live on site just because it can burn up. You're going to burn through a manager a lot quicker because it's 24/7.
Well, Ryan, we want to thank you. And we always ask, how can we support you? I know, and I was going to bring this up. You say you have a park for sale, right? You have a few lots. I don't know if you want to share that. Somebody might be interested.
We have an RV park outside of Knoxville for sale, but nothing. If you got questions about it, just let me
Yeah,
know. I'm
sure.
happy to get in touch.
How can this community, how can we support you?
I mean, if you're interested in buying mobile home parks, let me know. If you have a deal, you can bring it to me. I'm happy to look at it for you. I'm happy to pay a finder's fee. I'm happy to partner, and I'm open for business, and any questions you got, just let me know. So, or if you're looking to invest in somebody else's deal, I probably know them. I'm happy to tell you my thoughts on them. I'm an open book. So,
Stick with towns.
yeah.
With justify.
Yeah, I didn't really get into like the deal makeup and like how to look for a deal, how to look for markets. I'm happy to keep going.
Yeah.
But like deal specifics on what we look for and what makes a good park. So the actual like market itself, right? We want to be, for example, around here, the mobile home park that's on Coleman. I use this example a lot. Behind the Taco Bell on Coleman, that is like the type of park I want to buy. I want to buy where there are $1 million houses in the best neighborhood. I want to own that trailer park, right? Like that is what we're looking for. We're looking for like the best real estate, right? It's still a real estate play, right? So we're always looking for location, right? We want the best school districts. We want really, really big delta between the medium housing price and what the mobile home park is, right? I want $1 million neighborhood and that trailer park right next door. That's what we want, because that delta is going to drive a different class of people that are going to try to be in that neighborhood, try to be in that area, right? Because they're still trying to get their kids, trying to be in a better neighborhood. Like I'm not buying a mobile home park in the worst neighborhood. I have bought those, and those are the worst assets you do not want to own that. You don't even want to own an apartment community in those type of neighborhoods. So that's typically what we're looking for, right? What's the 200,000, 150,000 medium home price? We're looking for typically 50 people or more in a metro, but I bought in no metros before. Those can still work. You just got to know the specifics of the town itself and what's the drivers of it. Because like Aspen, Colorado doesn't really have a huge metro, but like it's still got a lot of people going in and out of there, so you can still own a park, right? Because the people that work there got to live somewhere, and they're probably going to live in a park or some type of something like that, right? Something affordable. So that's what we're looking for. I'm looking for city utilities. I'm not buying in like what are they, red states or blue? I don't, whatever the bad one. I always get them confused. Yeah, I don't want the blue, depending on how you look. You know what I meant. I'm looking in landlord friendly states where there's not rent control, because I want to be able to raise rent and I don't want the government to hinder my ability to run my park. I mean, that's what we're looking for, right? Good towns, good employers, good school districts, and a high delta between the affordable, like the medium housing price and our product, which is typically like a brand new home is going to be like $50,000 to $80,000, right? Brand new mobile home that we're bringing in. So that's what we're looking for. We're also looking at the 2-bedroom rent. We want that to be like 1,000 to 1,200 or more typically, because if you're like less than that, that's kind of where it can like, people are like, I'd rather live in an apartment than a mobile home, right? But yeah, that's what you're looking for. I mean, and then as far as the deal itself, we're looking for city utilities, 60, 80% occupied. Returns you can kind of expect in the business, which is something I didn't touch on. So if you listen to like some stuff prior to COVID, people are going to say mobile home parks, mailbox money, you can expect a 10, 9, 10, 11 cap. All you do is raise rent, build back utilities, and your park's now doubled in value. That doesn't really exist anymore. The national average, which I was telling somebody before we started, is like 5.18. That was a national average for mobile home park cap rates of last year. It was lower than multifamily. So the business has changed a lot. You can still find attractive deals. I am always looking to just double my money. That is how I invest. So if I invest $1, I expect to make $2 back when I sell or refinance. That's what I'm looking for. There's been plenty of deals back in the day where, I looked like a genius because we bought it for 10,000 a unit and sold it for 50,000 a unit, right? Nothing of what I did. It just was rising tides with all the stuff that was going on in the height of COVID, kind of driving right time, right place. And now it's more of like, we're figuring out who can operate, who actually can buy these parks fairly decently. And I think there's a lot of opportunity left if you know what you're doing. So, or you want to learn how to know what you're doing, because there's a lot of people that have gotten out of the business. A lot of institutions are getting out of the business too. And it's going to continue to consolidate. And eventually BlackRock, Blackstone, and all the large operators will own everything. They own a decent portion. People just don't know it. They operate under different names. And I've sold to those guys. I mean, it happens. Yeah. And it's just the nature of the business, right? And being a syndicator, you're in the business to make money for your investors and yourself. And it's a very, very different form of real estate to say you're going to own something for 50 years. Most people haven't actually thought about that, being 70 years old, still working on their asset. Like let's be honest, no one in this room is really going to do that. Maybe 1-2 people out of this room are going to buy it at 20 and hold it till 70. Like that's just the nature of the beast. It's really hard to do that long term if you're scaling a company. Now, if you do 1 or 2 assets, you may be able to do that, or if that's your only asset. But if you're doing what I'm doing, which is raising money, buying, selling, fixing up, it's really hard to own something for 30, 40 years. So it's a completely different company structure. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I think I covered it all. Things not to, actually, I'll keep going. Things not to buy. Do not buy private utilities. Private utilities are well water if you don't know what you're doing. Do not buy septic, and do not buy a lagoon or a wastewater treatment plant. So you can buy those, but buy city utilities, city water, city sewer, if you can. The next one on the sewer would be septic. And then a treatment plant. Does anybody know what like a treatment plant or a lagoon? Does anybody ever seen one of those on site? So you know how cities have wastewater treatment facilities? You have that literally in your mobile home park. So you're responsible for everything within it and the outflow. So there's a lot of liability. And then a lagoon is literally just a holding tank. It's a big pond and there's different ponds and it's exactly like it sounds. It's a sewage lagoon. And there's a lot of risk that goes along with that. And those are few and far between nowadays. Septic, believe it or not, a lot of people think septic is fine. If your park or asset is 30, 40 years old, your chance of being able to replace it, you're probably not going to be able to because the leach fields are bad. They've changed a lot of the layouts in new installs, and you may have to do like with leach fields. And if you have a well, you have to be a certain amount of feet away. And some of your parks are really dense, so you might not be able to put a new septic tank in there. There's ways around it. You can put a mound system. It's an above ground engineering. It's just really, really expensive. What we've been doing recently is buying private utilities and connecting them to city utilities if available. For instance, we have a treatment plant right now where we're doing that. We have a septic conversion to city sewer, and we have another one that we're under contract that we're going to connect to city sewer. So it's just very expensive, very intense process. And I still am learning on the fly. There's a lot that goes to that. And I would not say do that for your first park, even though I did connect well water to city water on my first park, but don't do what I did. I'm few and far between. So cost is dependent on every county, every state's a little bit different. To do our septic conversion on a 40 site park, it is $220,000 roughly. We're all in. Will be after conversion. That is we paid 1.1. So we're going to be, but the seller held back 150 grand in cash. So we're really only out of pocket about 80. So unique deal. A lot of times the sellers know that their systems are messed up. They're just willing to see if you're going to call them on it or you're going to drop the deal. I mean, and then taxes are the biggest thing right now that everybody's getting hit with is property tax reassessments. And we've been hit with 2 or 3 of them where it's completely ruined the deal. I was telling you about one of our storage facilities. I mean, it's completely screwed us and it felt really illegal what they did. And it has since. There's a new law in Ohio because of what they did to us and many other people. Property taxes, make sure you're actually talking to the assessor because, mom and pops owned it for 50 years and their basis is like 200 grand and now your basis is 5 million. Your taxes are going to go up. So it just depends on how much. Yeah. If anybody's got any questions, let me know. I'm online. I'm around. Just let me know.
Yes. Where do we find you online?
Just under my name or treesidecapital.com is our website.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. Our next event is March 17th, and it's about how to legally wholesale in South Carolina. So that's what the next one is. And then, Elliot, do you want to share our next event?
Hey guys, Elliot Sperling with Created Avenue Real Estate. A lot of familiar faces in the room. I love. Our next event is actually March 6th. So we had our first Deals, Donuts, and Coffee event last month at Bloom Coffee. On Friday at 9 a.m. and it was a tremendous turnout. I think we were only supposed to pitch 1 deal and we ended up pitching like 5. There's a ton of back and forth and big thank you again to Coastal Equity. They were there and they were also underwriting the deals and it was a really great event. I'm really looking forward. The next one will be March 6th, 9 a.m. at Bloom again. Guys, please do me a huge favor. If you have a deal that you want to present, please submit it via the link that will be sent out and so we can has a stage for you to present it.
Is it like raising money deal or like you're like trying to wholesale?
Any deal you want.
Okay.
Marcela had pitched a listing that she had last time, and there was a kind of development deal last time. It's all over the place. Again, last time we kind of opened up the floor, and someone who wasn't planning on presenting this was like, "Hey, I got this Airbnb in Myrtle Beach."
We had a lot of people on board.
Very collaborative, very open event. So yeah, 9 a.m. March 6th at Blue. Look forward to seeing you guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. We will be here. You know, we have pizza, drinks. So thank you so much. Paul will be back next time.
Yeah.